What's up guys, Matt here coming at you with another quick video. We're diving into this FCX24 a little bit more. So I'm gonna show you guys what I did with this hex really quick, because the issue is with the hex that comes on this, if you try to just mount some 1.0 wheels straight on, most of them are gonna hit the portals and your tires are gonna rub, especially seems like on the front. So I was trying to get it a little bit wider. So what I did is just drilled one of these out, because this is made for the FCX24, which has a smaller axle. So you can see the FCX24 hex won't fit over that inner part of that axle there, so it don't work. So I just drilled this out, and then I had to use, or I didn't have to, I could have notched this where the pin goes in here. Could have notched that, but then you got to be pretty clean with that. So I used a little bit shorter pin, because the pin that comes in the FCX24 is too long to go inside of that slot. So you need a little bit shorter pin. So when you put the shorter pin in here, now I had some that were a little shorter, but they were too short, wasn't going to stick through there at all, and so you really wasn't going to have much to catch once you put that one through there. So it took me a second to get it lined up, but now it's on there and it's catching like it should, you can see. So then we are ready to mount our wheel, and we are set. So that is the easy part. Now this 4-link stuff, I just did the rear right now. I'll do the front eventually. Just when I get time, I wanted to get the high clearance in the rear. You can see this thing has major clearance. It could probably stand to have a little shorter top link to kind of roll that axle, but it'll be okay. Really, we're gonna hit our drive shaft now before we hit a link. Now, you can see there's a lot of slop in that, and I'll probably figure something else out on that eventually. But for now, I just didn't even use the eyelets for these links, because the screws that go into this skid are larger diameter that won't fit through those eyelets. So you have this small little hole that your screw goes through, and a larger screw. So I may drill a few of these out and make something work. I mean, we can take care of that. Another issue is the way your shock and your link mount to the same thing there. So I'll have to figure something out for the rear. But again, if I can drill that out, I can use that eyelet in there and not have all this play. So I think I can make it work. I just really wanted to kind of extend this thing a little bit and see how I liked it, and then we will go farther into making that work. But it works for now, and it's honestly, it freed it up a lot. Now I don't have much travel there because I played around with my shock mounting options. I just tapped some holes here. Honestly, I used just my body reamer and just barely started a little hole, and then once it started, I ran the screw in. I left it backed out a little bit so the shock clears the frame here. I put them down here to start with and give it a lot more travel, but it sat higher, so I like the way it sits now. We'll have to test the front out. You can see I moved it from up here all the way down to here, and there's going to be people that says, oh, you screwed the geometry of the whole truck up, but I don't care. I'm just playing around with it. And it gave me a lot more travel and helped it sit a lot lower. So it's my truck, I'll do what I want. Another thing I had to do was I took my ESC loose, turned it around, moved it a little bit forward, remounted my on-off switch because it was loose. All of these wires were a complete wreck. You couldn't even get the body on without bunching up wires. They'd get down in here, just a wreck. So kind of balled that up to help out a little bit. But the reason I had to turn this was before I kept, when I would let this thing kind of settle, this side was like way up here. And I was like, I could not figure out. I was like, why is it doing that? This shock is in the same spot. It's the same. So it was this wire hanging up. It was not long enough with the way they had the ESC receiver turned. It had to plug in way back here. So it was causing it to hang up. So I just turned that around instead of extending the wire. And now you can see it has lots of travel. So good or bad, we'll see. And we got these wheels. I've had these for a while. I had them on my rat rod bodied truck, and they're okay. I'm not able to get a lot of weight with these. There's just a lot of things don't fit well in there. So we'll see how we like these. But I am running the Injora brass inner rings on the front too, so we got a little more weight there. In the rear, this wheel and tire weighs almost exactly the same as this one, so we didn't really gain anything there. We did gain a little bit of the brass hex. It's not going to do anything, but anyways, but we did gain some in the front. I'll put a clip up here where I weighed those. All right, so the stock wheel and tire is 23.5. This wheel and tire with the brass ring, 31.8. So we're gaining a little bit. Without the brass ring, you are 23.8. So you're almost even without the brass ring. Not a huge gain, but it's a wheel option. So good way to get some good 1.0 tires on here at least. And the thing about it is, these 1.0 tires are almost the exact same diameter as the 1.3 stocks. All right, so we didn't gain a ton of weight, but we got our 1.0s mounted up, and we're gonna see how this thing rides now. So one of the main issues with the wheels also, I'll talk about here real quick. So with the stock hex and everything, if you mount up a different wheel, like these mofos work well because you can change the offset of your hub. You can change the hub and have a different offset. Then the problem is, as you can see how that has these screws in here, and you have this deep hole here for your wheel nut to go in. Well, this wheel nut's so big that when it goes down in there, you can't get a tool in there really very well to tighten that up. Now, I did play around with putting a bearing, just a regular bearing from the FCX24 down in there. So when you get the bearing down in there, it still leaves you room to get the wheel nut on, but it don't fall all the way down in that hole to where you can't get the tool in there. So that does work. Also, it's not quite as tight as I probably would get it, so you can maybe add a little rubber O-ring on there also, but for now I'm just going to run these wheels that I have here, and we'll see how we like this thing, and we save a bearing. So take this thing out on the rocks, we'll run it a little bit. If anybody's wanting to do this stuff, this requires a little work. I had needed a couple 2mm by 10mm screws, I believe it was, for this, and a couple FCX24 wheel nuts I used on those screws, I believe it was, to bolt that on. So you need to have an assortment of screws and bolts and nuts and all that to make that work. So if you're not big on really modding stuff out, you might want to skip that one. But you can see I may have to do something with that front end. It don't want to settle real good. I think the links will help free that up some. I did go in and just loosen all of these screws on these links just a tiny bit because they were really tight and it was really binding, like not moving hardly at all. And it did free it up a lot. We still just a little tight, and some of that may be more in the shocks, especially laying at that funky angle. It's really not an ideal mounting spot for the shocks. I may move them up to like here or something. I think that would probably work pretty well, but just wanted to see how it ran, and we'll go from there. So pretty simple, it can be done. Look at the clearance on the rear of that thing, like it is slammed. So maybe we can get that front down just a little more. I don't really mind the front being up a tiny bit more because we can launch the front over things and then drag the rear. So we'll see how it runs. We'll take it outside. You guys let me know what you think, and we'll see how she does. So now you can see, if you own one of these, you know how these wires are. I also did away with this thing that I hate and just put some Velcro on the bottom of my battery and in the battery tray there. So that makes it a little easier, gets that out of the way. But now I can actually slide this on without having a bunch of wires in the way, and we're clipped in. All right guys, so we're gonna see how this thing runs now. So we got her slammed a little, stretched, new wheels and tires with a little weight in the front. We got the high clearance links in the back. Let's see what this beast can do. Right up that where it just wouldn't do it before. Love the look of this thing even more now. So normally not a huge fan of chrome wheels, but I just like how they fit on this thing. It just seemed to work. And the wheelbase of this rig is so much better now. This cab is more like an 18 scale cab. And it just looked kind of funny with the short rear end. So I think stretching it out really did a lot for it in the looks department, and it's definitely helping it in the performance. And I'm one-hand driving again, so not super smooth with that reverse. There we go. It's a tough crawl. Look at that flex we got now. This thing is now a monster. Look out, ladies. I'm gonna try this really tough line across the center here. Everything kind of got changed up a little bit. I had a dang groundhog or mole, I mean, got up in here and caused an earthquake. You can see all this is like raised now. So the lines are a little different, but I am super impressed with the slow crawl of this thing out of the box. And look at that. We got flex now. Oh, save it. Yes. All right, so you can see here, this back right, it's not pulling. So we must have stripped these gears. So we're gonna fight with FMS now and see how they're customer service is. But they're gonna have to get some metal gears out quick if these things are gonna do much of anything. All right guys, I am super bummed about this one. This thing, you've seen it, is really performing. Look at the clearance on it. This thing, I'm loving it. The 2-speed, everything about it, except for these plastic gears. So this is the problem I've seen a few people having, which this is not real smart anyways, in my opinion. So you have a pin there that rests on this gear, basically kind of like your wheel hex sits on that pin. And it's just, the gear's soft and it's just wallering that out. And it no longer catches and it just spins. So that thing is just sitting there spinning. So we're gonna email FMS, see how their customer service is. If they don't get some metal gears out for this thing, it's not gonna survive. I'll just tell you that now. So if anybody from FMS is watching, you better get some metal gears on the shelves now, because this thing will be dead as quick as it was alive. That's all I can say. I've never had a gear one on the FCX24 strip. I was super high on this thing and boom, shot down. You know, we put brushless power in the FCX24 on stock gearing, no issues. You know, yeah, you can strip it if you're just going nuts, but this was not really even in a bind and it's gone. So that's not good. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think from one extreme to the other with this thing. Absolutely love it, got it performing, and it's dead. So we'll see if we can get some gears. Who knows? I'll link everything I used in the description, as well as this truck, but if you haven't bought one, you might hold off for a little bit. It'll work its way out. Somebody will make some gears, so I appreciate everybody watching. Peace.